Hello and welcome to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society's Flavour Hunters Festival live stream. Thanks for joining us. I'm Richard GOSLAN. I'm editor of the Society's members magazine, Unfiltered. I'll be your pub landlord and host tonight. I hope you enjoyed that wee video. Just to get you in the mood, we opened up a Society whisky there and let you enjoy the sights and the sounds of your Society bottling landing on your doorstep. So we've got a action-packed Flavour Festival live stream for you tonight. Lots going on. We're going to take you across to Campbelltown. We're going to be heading over to Islay and a few points in between. We've music from the Rhythm and Booze project. We've got our pub quiz, and we've got a very special competition this evening to win one of 3 special Society May Festival tasting packs. So information on that coming up very soon. As always, give us a shout out. Let us know where you are, where you're tuning in from. Let us know what's in your glass. Let us know how you're doing. And as always, get involved in the comments. If you've got any questions for our guests or anything you want to contribute tonight, then feel free. Always good to hear from you. But first of all, let me bring into the virtual pub my co-host this evening, the one and only SCHMOLL, a familiar face now at the Society as our social media guru and as a regular host for our virtual tasting sessions. So Mads, looking forward to festival season?
I am. I mean, in a way, it feels like it's kind of already begun a little bit, but you know, it's the anticipation. We've seen some of our members going up to Speyside, and that's really exciting. I'm excited for them. And I think it's going to be a great one, have everyone back in person.
It's, well, it's long overdue, isn't it? Since 2019 was the last trip for both of us to Islay or anywhere else, really. So champing at the bit to get back out and about, and just really delighted that it's back on, and we'll both be heading out to Islay as well at the end of May. So really looking forward to that. We've got a special competition tonight. Mads, do you want to do the honours and explain what is up for grabs and how to grab it?
Absolutely. So very excitingly, we have our festival tasting pack, which looks like this. And it's going to be going on sale tomorrow, but we're actually going to give you the chance to get one early. So this is open to EU and UK members. All you need to do is email your name and membership number to flavorhunterscompetition@smws.com. Entries are open now, so you can send your email in now, and we'll draw 3 winners tonight.
Great stuff. Great competition. So get your entries in. I'll keep this scrolling along the bottom of the screen every so often, just so you can check in on the email address to send your entry into. But yeah, 3 brilliant tasting packs up for grabs. So good luck to anyone who is entering that competition. Right. We've got Ian McALISTER from Glen Scotia Distillery waiting in the wings, but we're going to kick off with a little bit of music from another familiar face who sings with the Rhythm and Booze project, Philippe Schreberg, a friend of the Society. So we're going to kick things off with his tune, Rollin' and Tumblin'. Here we go. There we go. Not a bad start there, eh?
Definitely it was like dancing along in my chair.
Right. Without any further ado, let's say good evening to the one and only Ian McALISTER, Master Distiller at Glen Scotia in Campbelltown, a long-time friend of the Society. Great to see you, Ian. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, thank you. It's a fantastic evening here in Campbelltown. The sun is shining.
Excellent. So we're going to taste some whiskey, Ian, but give us an idea of what's going on now that things are coming back to real life. What's happening for you in Campbelltown in May?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. You know, the festival's around the corner. That'll kick off, and when are we? We're the 25th of May, and that's obviously the Campbelltown Malts Festival week. Springbank will be the next day, then Glengyle, etc., and a few others in between there, Walk Whisky, etc. So, yeah, it's a lot going on. You know, Campbelltown's really, quite busy at the moment. There's certainly a huge interest in the place whiskey-wise, guys. So, it's fantastic to see here. You know, at Glen Scotia, it's early on in the season for us usually, but yeah, it's been wonderful, and I think it's the same all over. You know, I think there's just a huge appetite for whiskey in general at the moment. So it's wonderful to see, and potentially we've been locked up for the past I don't know. I've lost these years. It's been a while, so yeah. We've been locked up for a while. So it's good to obviously, you know, to see everything coming back, especially with Campbelltown. You know, Campbelltown tends to be a bit slow. You know, but not so.
Well, I mean, there must be a bit of a buzz, Ian, not just with life at Glen Scotia, but the news that there's new distilleries on their way. You know, there's a lot going on in Campbelltown and a lot to celebrate across the wider whiskey world as well.
Absolutely, you know, and I could never quite fathom out why Campbelltown always, you know, missed out on these opportunities, and it's absolutely wonderful, isn't it? You know, it's you know, well, I'm biased. I'm in a Campbelltown. Where else would you want to build a whiskey distillery? So it's great to see. It really is. You know, it's fantastic to see, and I think it's, you know, it's good for the town. It's good for the people. It's good for, you know, potentially young people, career prospects. It's good for visitors. Yeah, it's got a lot of positives there. It really has, and it's long may it continue. Long may it continue.
And I know whenever I see Ian, we do reflect on when I was there for my first visit. I think it was 2009, maybe. And it's, you know, if we wanted any illustration of how much Campbelltown has changed and how much Glen Scotia has changed, then I can think back to that visit where I thought the building was derelict. There wasn't much sign of life. There was still whiskey being made there, but you were keeping really quiet about it.
It was, you know, and it was really, and again, you know, it's one of these moments where, you know, you look back and I think, you know, the journey I've had at Glen Scotia has really been a unique experience. And yeah, you always look back with those tinted spectacles. But at the time, Richard, as you say, you know, it really was, you know, the distillery was certainly down its luck, you know, and the reputation was, I wouldn't say short, but it wasn't in the best of health. And yeah, it was myself, Davey, and Jim, you know, and we never really had visitors, as it shows when obviously you turned up at the gates, you know, and you probably were met with a semi-hostile reception.
I was more like, what are you wanting here?
Well, I had quite a warm welcome when I was there in 2019. Very kindly squeezed me in. Yeah. Ian, I remember you very kindly squeezing me in for a wee interview for a Whiskey Talk when it was brand new, when it was still freshly out as our podcast.
Yeah, well, do you know, Madge, I think you were at the other end of the spectrum. I think you probably came in probably the worst day of my life when you came in the festival day for an interview. And probably half of the interview was, I was probably looking into space and I was, aye, you know, and it's probably not a lot of coherent sense there, but yeah, I know. I mean, it's wonderful, isn't it? You know, it really is. And as I say, you know, the journey, the journey of whiskey, you know, it really is superb. It really is. What an industry to be involved in. It's absolutely wonderful. And I say, I think Glen Scotia is a, you know, as you said, Richard, 2009 is a fantastic example of that. And that probably that picture you took of Jim at the gate with the Valenche, that for me is a moment in time, and it's a fantastic picture, that, you know, and it says a lot.
Cracker. Yeah. It was a reluctant model, I'll say that, but we got a good shot out of him eventually. Had to twist his arm a wee bit, but we got there. Right, let's drink some whiskey then, because we've got a couple of drams to try tonight. Obviously, we have the Society's Festival bottling, which is coming out in May. So let me find that in my tasting pack. There we are. I've got my mini here. Oh, you've got more than a mini, Ian. That's good.
There you are.
You've got a full bottle there. So we've got a rare release, we're calling it, because this is a small batch single malt from Glen Scotia, which the Society's releasing this month for festival time. Mads, do you want to talk us through this one?
Yeah, absolutely. This will be my first time trying it, so it's quite exciting. So the logic behind these releases is that we're really able to share them globally with all of our members. So there's something really, really special about that. And it's a first fill. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's absolutely wonderful. What a nose on it.
It's wonderful. A great nose, isn't it?
Aye. Sorry, Matt.
No, you're fine. So this is from our oily and coastal flavour profile. It's a first fill bourbon barrel. 8 years old, and it was distilled on the 11th of September 2013, and it's 59.7% ABV. And on the nose, I think there's a beautiful salinity to it, but also quite a lot of sweetness.
Yeah, it certainly has that. Immediately, it's got that Glen Scotia character coming right through, I think.
Yeah. See that association. Sometimes it doesn't need to get fancy. Sometimes it doesn't need to get complicated. Some of the best, you know, and you're in that, you know. And it's funny, back to where we were, 2009, 2013 was the start of the, you know, the new era at Glen Scotia, and some of that 2013 stuff is incredibly special stuff, wonderful stuff, beautiful. Yeah.
Right, shall we have a wee taste?
Let's have a wee taste.
Slanja, you good health, everyone. Cheers.
Slanja.
Slanja.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
Definitely got that oiliness as well.
What I'm noticing here, guys, the strength. Look at the strength in that.
Yeah.
It does not drink like that, doesn't it? No, it's incredible, wonderful. Yeah.
Quite a bit of vanilla and spice in there as well. That sweetness coming through from the nose.
Yep.
Yeah, you really get that woody note from the first fill barrels.
Yeah.
Really fresh.
Yeah, really, really works well, doesn't it? It really does. You know, it's, as you say, it's really well balanced. It's fresh. Absolutely, Marge. You know, you get a huge amount of vanilla. There's a salinity in there. Lovely oils. Look at the oils.
I'll maybe add a wee splash of water from my.
Oh, look at that. I tend to use things like that, you know, but it's okay. No one can see it, so fine. Yeah, that's wonderful. It really is, you know. And as I say, something as simple as that gets the message across, doesn't it? You know, it is Campbelltown. It's got everything you'd want from it there. Drink's wonderful. And as I say, the strength, 59.7.
Yeah, brilliant. There's Andrew saying he can't wait to get a hold of this. He loves a good 93. And we've got a shout out as far as Hong Kong. There's Kelvin tuning in from Hong Kong tonight. How you doing, Kelvin? Nice to see you. And we've got some other people from different parts of the world. There's Frank from Hanover. And good evening to Gerben tuning in from Amsterdam. He's got a 96.36 in his glass. So people tuning in from all over. That's lovely to see. Welcome all aboard. Here's a question from Rolf, will there be enough festival bottles for all interested members? Mads, what do you say to that?
There's quite a big allocation of these bottles because of the nature of the release. But I would recommend that if you're interested to obviously keep an eye on the release dates, which we have live on the website just now, and don't hesitate because I think they will go quickly even still.
Yeah, because they're not single cast releases this year. We do have more available to members, and they're also going to be available globally. So everyone around the world who's a member of the society will have a chance to get their hands on these bottles in larger quantities than usual, but they're still going to be in big demand. So don't hang about once you get the opportunity and they're on sale. Right. So that's the society bottling, but shall we have a wee dram of this, Ian?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a shame to put that one down. That's fantastic whiskey. And I think it's, the last one I was on last year, but I think it was 2020. I mentioned this earlier. It was a brilliant bottling too. It was wonderful bottling. And I've only got a wee drop left of that. So, sorry guys. So basically the Glen Scotia Distillery, and this is the festival release, or the general festival release. I've got a distillery festival release, but that's a different matter. So basically this one, as I say, wonderful. It really is. It's basically, believe it or not, 2013 as well. It's a heavily peated. So it's from February 2013, first fill bourbon aspect. The peating level is going to be 54.5 parts per million, start the process, and that is the heaviest peated a run that we've ever done at the distillery within living memory, anyway, as far as I'm aware. And it's really good stuff, fantastic stuff, worked really well. Before that, we used to have different peating levels, but they were never quite that high. But this works well. So it's basically spent 7.5 years in first fill bourbon. Then it's had a finish in first fill PX hogsheads. So it spent about 12 months in that PX hogsheads. 56.5%. So it's down a little bit. And yeah, it really, it's getting all the elements of Campbelltown again. It's really got that light smokiness, peat aspect there coming through. There it is there in the glass. Okay, so you obviously get a different shade there. when you compare the two of them there, obviously you get more the bourbon aspect off of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society one, whereas this one, you get more of that sherry influence there. And with something that heavily peated is this, you would actually expect this one, the Glen Scotia one, to be lighter than your bourbon aspect, just a tone or two lighter. So it shows you're obviously picking up the PX sherry nuances there through the finishing process. So straight away in the nose.
There's Max already got his hands on a bottle, looks like.
Indeed.
And he's joining us, so he says brilliant drop. So that's good.
Good stuff. Good. Yeah. Oh, Max. Cheers, Max. I mean, it's straight away, you get that smokiness in the nose, which is nice. It's not an overbearing peatiness. It's just lovely, a lovely smoky hue, Campbelltown-esque. Yeah. These burnt, charred timbers. A lot of these whiskies, wonderful. I really get into this heavily charring aspect. Not that this is, associated with this whiskey, but it's a similar profile, if you like.
Yeah.
It really is. And let's give it a try, eh? Cheers,
yeah, why
guys.
not?
Cheers.
Yeah. Rich treacle. Bit of spicy.
Lovely sweetness coming through from the PX casks.
Absolutely.
Combined with that smokiness. Yeah, that's a great combo.
It really works well. The balance, it should all be in balance. Everything should work together. You should get a logical progression of flavors, if you like. Everything should demonstrate what it is. You should still get the first fill bourbon aspect. You should get a bit of that sherry hogshead attributes, but again, you should get that peatiness. That peatiness should be there. It's sweetness, the bourbon really works well. Yeah.
It
Lovely.
takes me right back to Campbelltown, to our trip. I remember walking along. We were trying to find a pub to go to, and just that kind of. It was a bit chilly that night, and I think someone had a a wood smoke fire going, or maybe even a coal fire. But it's that kind of that smell when it's spring, but it's still really quite cold out, and you kind of need a jacket, but you maybe didn't bring one.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly it. And it has it. And there's something about Campbelltown whiskies in general. Glen Scotia's got it too. There's that. Every region's got a certain amount of regionality, but there's something about Campbelltown whiskies. It's got that slight dirtiness there, which really, really just brings it home. That whole encompassing aspect of Campbelltown, is in the glass, which for me is fantastic. It really is.
Two totally different drams there, Ian. I mean, I think you can still identify them as Glen Scotias. They've got that. The character is there in the base of these drams, but because of the different kinds of maturation, they've taken on such different characteristics. But really nice to try them side by side like that and see the variety that's coming out of the distillery.
It's wonderful. It is, it really is, and it's something I'm going to do during the festival week. Even the fact, as I say, obviously the Scotch Malt Whisky Society released their, bourbon casks, first fill bourbon casks, but there's bourbon casks and there's, let's just call them bourbon casks. There's different aspects even with these casks. Whether it's Heaven Hills, Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, Maker's Mark, whatever. There's so many outturns, if you like. The flavour profile with just the same new make spirit from these different casks. So it's absolutely wonderful, wonderful.
Brilliant.
Tough job.
Well, we're getting plenty of good feedback as well in the comments there. So a lot of people looking forward to getting their hands on both bottlings, I think, but and looking forward to getting down to Campbelltown. Brilliant.
There we go. That's the two of them. Okay.
What a great combo.
It is. Really, that's fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. The brilliant bottling really is, guys. And it's yeah. I'll be after another one anyway.
Great stuff. Ian, so nice of you to join us tonight. Great to see you. Looking forward to getting down to Campbelltown again. Always a pleasure to speak to you and to taste some whiskies together. So brilliant. Thanks very much again.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you. Lovely to chat to you. All the best.
Right,
Cheers.
Good night. Oh, cheers.
Good night.
Cheers, Ian.
Cracking my glass there. That's not a very good sign. Right, well, that's a nice start. Couple of fantastic whiskies. Right, so let's move on. We've got a lot to get through tonight. Let me explain. In festival month, we're all about flavour hunting, and the Society has got a special little campaign on based around memory boxes. And what it's all about is creating physical boxes with objects in them which somehow help you to be transported to a time and a place that are special to you and have a connection, so that when you nose a whiskey, you're transported to a different time and place. And we've got a psychologist. He's a senior lecturer in psychology from the University of London. His name is Dr. ANSGAR ENDRESS, and we've been working with him to try and find out a wee bit more on the science of how our memory works, and especially how when you nose a whiskey, you're transported to a certain time and place, and what is it that's going on in your mind that is so powerful that it just takes you back to a specific time and place. So Ansgar couldn't join us tonight, but I was fortunate enough to catch up with him yesterday and recorded our chat. So let me just play that and we'll listen in to Ansgar. Here we go.
So I really like your question, because essentially what you're asking me is how memory works. And the truth is, there are all these books and articles which have been written about this, but people like me, they have a job because we still don't know. Now, if we want two categories. One
Oh,
is,
it seems that we do not have sound on that.
one is
that right? We're lacking sound. Sorry about that. I will try and sort that out. Not sure what the problem is there. But I tell you what, let's move on and we will play some music while I try and get that sorted out. Let's go back to the Rhythm and Booze Project with their second tune of the evening. This is called We All Make Mistakes. Here we go. Great stuff from the Rhythm and Booze Project. So I'm going to have another go with the interview that I did with ANSGAR ENDRESS. So let's try that again. Here we go.
So I really like your question because essentially what you're asking me is how memory works. And the truth is, there are all these books and articles which have been written about this, but people like me, they have a job because we still don't know. Now, if we want to know how we form these kinds of memories, so we have to distinguish between different kinds of memories which we might have. So there are these unconscious memories, and I don't mean your deepest thoughts, desires, and so forth. But what I mean are things like skills, which you know how to do, but you don't necessarily know how you do them. An example of this is riding a bike. So you can cycle to work, but you won't necessarily be able to tell me the physics of bike riding. But even though you don't know the physics of the bike riding, you can cycle to work. You can use the physics without having conscious access to it. So these kinds of skills are not what we are talking about. What we're talking about are memories which we have conscious access to, and they come also in two categories. One is kind of semantic memory, which are kind of definitions. So I might know that Bach is a composer who had these very elaborate counterpoints. That would be a definition. But what we are really concerned with are memory for events. So I might know the definition of Bach the composer, but I might also have a memory of a specific event that I'm sitting in Wigmore Hall and listening to Bach cantatas or something like that. And the important thing about these memories for events is that they integrate different modalities. So I have visual input, so I have the people sitting on the stage. I have auditory input. I hope that people are playing some music and the audience coughing approvingly. I might have tactile input so that I'm sitting on these cushy chairs. I might even have olfactory input, like the person with the question of perfume choice next to me. And all these memories, all these aspects, they come together to build some episode. So there's a brain structure pretty much in the middle of your head, the hippocampus, which takes these different aspects of the experience and binds them together. So if you want to access these memories later on, the hippocampus will have some summary representation of this, so that you can say, okay, if I want to retrieve this on this event, then I can retrieve the information from vision, from audition, the piece of music, the smells, and I can bring back all of this together. And that is something which happens when we form memories of specific events, specific episodes, as psychologists would call them, which have a specific place, a specific time, and also an activity which is associated with that. But these are fundamentally multi-sensory experiences.
And what is it about whiskey? I'm sure members tuning in this evening, people who've enjoyed whiskey, can find it so transportative that they get an aroma and they're immediately taken back to a specific place, to a specific setting and a time in their life that is encapsulated in that glass. So what is it that is so powerful in whiskey, for example, that can trigger those memories?
So there might, from a neuroscientific perspective, there is something which is specific about our memory for smells and for taste. So if you look at other sensory modalities, at least in primates, the connections to the brain area, which we just talked about, the hippocampus, which makes new memories, they're kind of indirect. They go through a higher order, mainly through a higher order brain areas. But like in other animals, you have kept this direct connection between the olfactory, the smell-related areas, and the hippocampus, that thing which makes new memories. And also there's another brain structure right next door, namely the amygdala, which does emotions, and you have these direct connections there as well. And if you look at the kinds of memories which can be elicited by emotions versus verbal cues or visual cues, they tend to be more emotional. They might relate to experiences earlier in your life, and they might also be more vivid. So it might be related to the connectivity between emotional areas and memory areas and the olfactory areas. Now, there's also more pedestrian explanation, if you like, Because if you think about an experience and how you encode this experience, you sample a whiskey, you might smell it, and the smell is just going to stay there. While you might look to the person you are enjoying the whiskey with, you might look at the surroundings because you're in a beautiful setting, and we will look at different things every couple of 100 milliseconds. So and if you look at one thing and then you look at the next thing, well, that doesn't bode too well for memory. So one reason why, I'm not sure to what extent there's research on that, but one difference between the experience of smell and the experience of visual information and so forth is that it is more consistently associated with a situation. There's less which can get into the way of memory.
And you're involved in our month of festival celebrations in what we're calling memory boxes, creating memory boxes which are designed to stimulate our senses, to trigger reactions. So just talk us through the memory boxes that you've been involved in creating for the Society. What are they and how do they work?
These are designed based on tasting notes by professional tasters of the different whiskies. And then some artists came up with things which are associated with these tasting notes to transport them into a different modality. Now, I'm not sure whether they will work or they will not work, because these kinds of triggering experiences that usually takes some trial and error to get it work. But based on what we know about the neuroscience of memory, they might well work for different reasons. One is that if you have a memory box, you have, say, a tea in the memory box, or you have some moss or something like this, which is associated with the flavor of the whiskey. You have more of an experience. You have more stuff to remember. That will probably be helpful because, as we just discussed, the hippocampus binds different modalities together. So if you have more information to hang on to, this will probably help with memory because you have more information you can hang on to. But there's a second reason why it might work, and I'm not sure whether it will. This is an empirical question. And this has to do with the relationship between language and memory. This grows out of long-standing research tradition which investigates the relationship between language and thought. And if you think that if you wonder whether there's a relationship between language and thought, I'm not convinced of any evidence which has been proposed in support of it. But there's one area where language seems to have an effect, that is on memory. It's not so much memory, it's not so much language, but it's if you have some concept, some discrete concept you can slap a verbal label to, something you have a name for it, then you remember it better. Now, if you have a memory box, you have some moss, you have a bag, or you have some tea. You have verbal labels for all of this. You have concepts for all of these things. And they might give you some conceptual structure which might help you parsing, interpreting the flavor of the whiskey. And because you have this kind of conceptual structure, something which you can verbalize, something which you can think about, it might also change your experience of tasting and of sampling the whiskey. Whether this works on at the end of the day, we don't know yet. But that is the exciting part of this project, that it might actually work based on what you know about the neuroscience of memory.
And do you think, based on that, there's a prospect of people creating their own memory boxes if you want to kind of keep a sense of stimulus for a certain place or time? Is that something that people can do to gather objects which just help you to kind of reconnect with a certain situation?
I would assume so. I mean, we all have some souvenirs of trips which we have been taking, which might be associated with taste and smells and so forth. If you have an object, it acts as a retrieval cue. So what a retrieval cue is, it's connected to some kind of memory. You look at, say, a pebble which you found on a beach or something like this, and it will help you, if it's a relatively recent memory, to tell the hippocampus, oh, please retrieve that kind of memory. If it's emotional, that is also quite useful as well, because we know that emotional experiences, they are remembered better. It doesn't really matter whether they, to some extent, it doesn't really matter whether they are positive or negative, as long as they're emotional, it will increase memory for encoding the memory. If you want to retrieve the memory later on, it's not particularly useful to be expressed all the time if you want to retrieve memories. But if you have some emotional association with that, it will probably be helpful as well. But if you give yourself retrieval cues for retrieving a memory, this will probably be a helpful thing to do.
There you go, ANSGAR ENDRESS, and apologies that you had to put up with two of me there. That was entirely unintentional, but it seemed that we lost audio if I disappeared from the screen. So you had to put up with me on the screen and with me asking questions. Maz, were you following that? Did you get all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I think it ties in quite nicely with what our tasting panel do already. You know, this idea of memory and taste and flavor. It's a really interesting one, and I'm excited to kind of see where we go with it this festival season.
Yeah, well, there's going to be certainly an event in London where these memory boxes are going to be presented, and I believe they're going to be in our members' rooms as well. So there'll be a chance for members to experience the memory box and find out more about what it's all about. But yeah, it's interesting to get the kind of scientific academic take on how our minds work and how we create these memories and how whiskey can be so evocative of time and place. Right, that's ANSGAR ENDRESS. We're also working with a chef, I should say, who has created really extraordinary canopies, which will match with each of the 6 rare release bottlings that we're putting out throughout the month of May. And he may join us tonight, but last I heard, he was on the road on a mammoth journey from somewhere in the south of England up to somewhere near Perth. And he's not arrived yet, but we'll keep an eye on his movements, and we may get to him at some point later on in the evening. But in the meantime, I'm delighted to introduce Ian Russell, who is a longtime friend of the Society as well, a writer for Unfiltered magazine. He describes himself as a whiskey blether man, but he's worked in whiskey for a very long time as an archivist, as a researcher, as a writer. And Ian is joining us to talk about the whiskey regions. And we wanted to chat to Ian because, you know, we've got 6 bottles coming out in May for the Society, and we're crossing across all the regions in Scotland. So we thought it was a good opportunity to kind of dig into the whole idea of whiskey regions and find out more about it. Ian, delighted you can join us. Are you well?
Richard. I'm very well, thank you. Yes, indeed. Enjoying the programme.
Great stuff. Ian, you wrote for us before about the whiskey regions, but we wanted to kind of recap and just talk about where this whole idea of whiskey regions came from. But I suppose it's surprisingly recent that the whiskey regions were laid down in law by the Scotch Whisky Association, right?
It's in 2009. It was the first time it was set down in law, and there were 3 regions were set out, which were Highlands, Lowlands, and Speyside, and 2 so-called localities, which were Islay and Campbelltown.
And what's the difference between a region and a locality?
That's a very good question, which I asked the Scotch Whisky Association, and they very, very helpfully told me. I'll try and remember exactly. Basically, they said a locality, there's a legal distinction, and they said a locality doesn't have, they looked up the dictionary, and they said that both Islay and Campbelltown didn't have the characteristics of a region, and so they called it a locality instead. It seems to be a very pedantic and arbitrary distinction, but I'm sure there's a good legal reason for it.
And of course, all of these regions, Speyside, Campbelltown, and Islay, they kind of are known for their own distinctive styles. How did that come about?
I think they were, and the whole concept of regions in a way became, it sprung from, there was two things it sprung from. One was a way of separating countries, regions for tax purposes. So originally there was the Highland region and the Lowland region, and that was because there was a different excise regulations in those two different places. So they were legally defined from 1784 up till 1816. And that was a very legal reason. But popularly, people discerned a character, if you like, or flavours, etc., from particular regions. So first of all would have been, for example, Ferintosh, which had a reputation for producing a very, very mellow, pleasant whiskey from 1690s up until well into the 19th century, for various historical reasons. Subsequently, Glenlivet became a very, the Glenlivet area became very well known as a region for producing a certain kind of whiskey, which was a strong, flavourful sort of whiskey. Whereas in Islay and in Campbelltown, both of these places had a reputation for producing very strong, peaty, pungent whiskies. Of course, things have changed over time, and nowadays it's quite difficult sometimes to each distillery produces different styles of whiskey, but that's where it all came from, was back in those days.
Yeah, so it dates back a long time, even as you say, the law wasn't really laid down until very recently, but I suppose our concept of the regions and the styles that they embody date back a long time, and those ideas of regional styles somehow persist when, as you say, perhaps they don't have that much meaning anymore, considering you get peated whiskies from Speyside and you get non-peated whiskies from Islay and everything else in between.
I think everything began with the distinction between, in the popular imagination, between Highland and Lowland, and there was this perception that the Highland whiskies were made in pot stills using mostly malted barley and run very slowly, and they gave a big flavourful whiskey, whereas the whiskies from the Scottish Lowlands tended to be mixed mash, and certainly in the 18th century, early 19th century, were quite often run very, very fast, very hot, and so there was a different style from in north of the Highland line than there was in the south. And then within those, especially within the Highland region, different areas got a reputation for producing different styles of whiskey. And that was not just legal. Within the trade itself, there was always this recognition of Highland, Lowland, Islay, and Campbelltown. That was usually the four, and then eventually Glenlivet, which became Speyside, became another of the fifth style, if you like. But within that, you had other things as well. But of course, the styles in those days weren't necessarily what we would associate with them today. And within those regions, for example, within Highland, you would have Glenmorangie on the east coast, you would have Talisker on the west coast. These whiskies don't, and never did really have the same style, if you like. So and that's why in the 1990s, people like Michael Jackson and the Scotch Malt Whisky Society tried to break down those regions and create. Michael Jackson, for example, had about 13 different regions that he identified. But as he said himself, it was more to do with geographically just putting things together. But I think we can definitely say that originally there were distinctive styles. I think for Islay and Campbelltown, we would definitely say big, peaty, pungent. For the Glenlivet, which is now sort of Speyside, originally quite fruity. Although when we say fruity and robust, etc., those whiskies would still have been quite peaty, but to our taste. McALISTER, for example, was a very, very peaty whiskey until at least the Second World War, and of course that's not something we would think of today.
And obviously there have been, as you mentioned, so many attempts to kind of refine the classifications. How much attention should we pay to regional classifications in today's whiskey world?
I don't think nowadays you can really do that. I mean, if you look at Islay, you've got Bruichladdich and you've got Bunnahabhain, which are not typical, really, although they can produce and do produce very peaty whiskies. The reputation became simply all distilleries have suddenly begun to produce different styles of whiskey. In Speyside, for example, you've got Benriach, which began to produce peaty whiskies under Seagram. Caperdonick at one point was also producing peaty whiskies. On Islay, you've got distilleries that are producing non-peaty whiskies. Every distillery is trying its hand at everything. So I think now those regional styles, there are distilleries which still produce the traditional style, but they'll also produce other whiskies and other styles. I mean, a lot of these styles as well, basically a distillery has always produced what the customer wanted, and when that customer was the blender, the Islay style, the peaty style went out of fashion for a long time in the 1880s, and a lot of the Islay distilleries either became silent or whatever. And part of the reason that whiskey stopped producing peaty whiskey was because the customer didn't want it. So, for example, at Ardbeg in the 1970s, they began to make unpeated whiskey because the blenders, Allied, the owners, wanted unpeated whiskey. So even, and Port Ellen was another example in the 1980s as well, which produced not what you would call a traditional Islay whiskey.
Well, Ian, thank you so much for popping on and joining us. The new issue of Unfiltered, which is out next week, actually has your article in it about the whiskey regions. It ran in last year's Unfiltered, but was so good that we decided to include it again. But thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for having me.
And
Ian,
cheers.
great to see you. Cheers. There we go. Everything you ever needed to know about the Scotch whisky regions.
Indeed. And it's a question I think that comes up again and again from our members and from the wider whiskey world.
Yeah. Well, it's an ongoing subject, but as we mentioned, we're kind of paying homage, even if we don't really say that each whiskey is absolutely distinctive of a certain region. We are releasing whiskies throughout May from each of the 5 regions. So it's up to you, try the whiskey. Does it tick the box in terms of a regional flavour profile, if there's such a thing nowadays? But we wanted just to get Ian on to have a chat and let us know more about the history of the regions. So very interesting stuff.
Yeah, and now I think we're actually over to Islay with Rachel MacNEILL from the Islay Whisky Academy. Hello, Rachel. How are you?
Sláinte. I'm very
Rachel,
well.
how are you doing? Slange.
Well, yes. I'm needing a wee dram for a bit of livener because I've got my diploma week this week. It's the first one I've had in spring, and it's wonderful because we're getting outside and we've had beach barbecues, we've had walks. It's just wonderful because the weather's cracking in Islay. But I'm like this. We bit like a so this is a very welcome reviver.
We all need a wee reviving dram every now and then.
Oh,
brilliant.
Delicious.
Well, you're looking well, Rachel. Lovely to see you.
You too, Richard. It's great to be here. And it was very interesting listening there to Ian talking about regions and localities. I was at that. We're a locality. I would say that we were a principality.
Definitely. So lots going on. Rachel, how's Islay shaping up in terms of the festival? Obviously, again, the first time since 2019 that it's happening in person. Maybe you quite appreciated the downtime, a wee chance to kind of have a bit of peace and quiet in May, because otherwise it's pretty crazy. But how's it looking for next month?
Well, I laugh. We always laugh, right? Because we think it's like, if the Queen visits anywhere, she thinks the world smells of wet paint. Well, in Islay, I think the festival goers think that Islay smells of wet paint and whiskey, because at this time of year, every distillery you go to, There's men in white suits, you know, painting the walls and making the place look immaculate for the festival. So in terms of visitors, I would say we're not going to be the way we were in 2018, 2019, because that was just ridiculous. You know, it was too much for the island. But I think it'll be the way it would be like maybe a few years ago. And the distillery events are ticketed. And I've got my own open day this year at the Islay Whisky Academy. We've got an open day on the 2nd of June, the Thursday, the 2nd of June. So that's right in the middle of the week. So we're ticketing events. So everybody's doing that. And they're kind of really selling well. And you can still go along. But I think maybe hotels and restaurants and things are holding it. I don't think there'll be just the quite big free-for-all that there was before the COVID, but it's still, you know, it's exciting. Tickets are getting sold out. There's a buzz about the place. You know, we're looking forward to welcoming everybody back. So, and let's hope they're good weather, because we've got great weather today, this week, and it's my diploma week, and we've got the weather that we usually have in May. And I was saying, well, it's good for me. I'm hoping that it's not global warming moving a month forward, you know, so that we've got the May week this week, and then fingers crossed.
Well, we've got an open day at Islay House on the Friday, just as the festival kicks off. So we'll be hoping for good weather that day as well. Because given that we're outside most of the day, fingers crossed for that one.
Yeah, let's hope it continues, because it was really good in the year that we were on Islay in 2019, and that buzz, that magic. What is the magic of the festival for you?
What is it? Well, seeing people like, you know, your old friends, you know, people. So seeing people again that come, maybe not every year, but, you know, that have been before. So you bump into people. Sometimes you keep up with people on social media, but not always. And then you might walk into one of the distilleries, you know, the open day, and they're across the room. You go, oh my God, how are you? And it's just brilliant. You know, you can spend a wee time, go and have a dram together. I would say for me, that would be the magic. I mean, of course, it's whiskey and, you know, it's nice and the new bottles and all the rest of it. But I would say for us, it's definitely the people, you know, and so they're coming back this year, you know, be able to shake their hand, be able to hug them. Well, you know, providing they want to be. So, like, we're all really looking forward to that. Yeah.
I bet you are. Was it nice to have a wee break from the festival, or was it a sense in May like, oh, you know, you wish everyone was over and having a good time?
Well, do you know, it's funny you should say that.
Tell us the truth.
Because me and the students were talking about the first lockdown, right? And do you know, in Islay, we loved it. I think, and then my friend Neil Murphy, that is the kinship host for my students, he said they just loved it as well, because the first lockdown, it was like as though we were back when we were little kids, like 20-40 years ago, because there was no chemtrails, no cars going past at the bottom of the road, and it was just the pace of life slowed down. And it was fantastic. But that was the first lockdown, you know, the very first one. And everybody was in the same boat. And I mean, we all loved that one. But I think people started getting a bit demented, you know, and like, what do you call that? Shack fever. Like last year. And we were just wanted to see folk. And also wanting to move ourselves. Wanting to go to events. Because the last thing I think I was at was yours... the opening in Glasgow, and then like more or less the next day or 2 days later, choom, and I thought, phew, thank goodness they opened that week.
Yeah, it was, in some ways it was good timing. At least we had the opening party before.
Well, for me it was good.
yeah, it was a last chance for most of us to have a night out, I think, before it all came to a grinding halt. But no, delighted that things are back open again, and you know, we're very much looking forward to heading over to Islay, Mads and myself and the rest of the SMWS team. So we hope to see you there.
Mr. Mark, you're bringing Mr. Mark with you? Is he?
Mr. McShane, yes. Oh,
yes.
absolutely.
No show without punch. Oh my.
Try and keep him away. Not a chance. Yeah. We're all gearing up, and John McShane will be there for sure.
Well, I think I've got a wee sneak preview of
absolutely. So we've got a couple of Islay bottlings out for our rare releases, but we've just got the one in the tasting pack. Mads, what do we have?
It's the Distillery 53 rare release. It's called Throw the Cork Away.
That's a brilliant name. I mean, we don't need to be encouraged to do that. That's an old tradition in Islay. You just open the bottle and you throw the cork in the fire. So I'm quite well versed in that. I was taking that as an instruction rather than a tasting note.
Yeah, no saving that one, and
no,
don't even think about flipping it. This is for cracking open and enjoying.
What's flipping? We don't know what that is.
No, not at all. Oh, that's lovely. And in terms of memory, you know, this is immediately transportative. It's like just fantastic and very distinctive, I think, of Islay for me, this one.
And it's so obviously we already know the region. It's a first fill ex Oloroso Hogshead. It's 8 years old and it's 58.4%.
I don't think it feels like 58. I think it's very, it doesn't feel that strong to me. It's got a lovely balance. The alcohol doesn't feel that high. I think it, and in the middle there's a wee kind of, for me anyway, there was like a kind of a dryness. I like a wee dry hint in the middle, a wee dry feeling. It's lovely. I really like it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's just a pity that my bottle is so wee. No, I'm only kidding.
We'll see at the end of May, Rachel.
We'll be bringing some more over.
We can sort that out, I'm sure. No, that's a great wee dram. And as I say, there's another Islay bottling being released later in May. It's not in the tasting pack, but it's another absolute belter. So look out for that one when it lands. An absolute cracker. Rachel, will you stay and run through the quiz with us?
I would be delighted. Yes,
I seem to remember the last time we did this, you were also the quiz co-host.
That's right. Was it myself and Andrew? Was it?
I think it was. Andrew Forrester.
Yeah. No, that's good. I like the quizzes. Quizzes are good fun. Mm-hmm.
Right, good stuff. Well, I should say the competition time to enter is closing fairly soon. What time are we drawing a line under it, Mads?
I believe we're going for 9:15. But yeah, 9:15.
Okay, so get your entries in. I'll just put up that banner again so that you know the email address to send your entries in, and then Mads is going to take care of gathering all the entries and putting it into some kind of electronic hat and drawing out the lucky winners. How are we going to let the winners know, Mads?
Well, they should stay tuned because we're going to announce it right here. Okay. And then we'll be in touch after via email to kind of confirm some details and get it sent out.
Right. Great stuff. Okay. Right. Rachel, let's crack on with the quiz.
Oh, right. Okay. Wait a minute. I need to put my specs on because I've got the quiz because I don't know how to put it up on the big screen, so I've done it here.
Right. Okay. So for any of you that have tuned in before, it's the same format tonight. We've got 10 questions. They're multiple choice. I'll reveal the options as we go along, and I'll reveal the answer to each question as we proceed through the quiz. So without any further ado, look at that. We've spelled whiskey wrong on the front page.
See, that's too much Irish whiskey when that was getting written.
That's it. Put your comments put your answers into the comments section. That's what I'm trying to say, and we'll see how you're getting on. So fire in your comments with the answers. Right, let's crack on. Rachel, do you want to kick off?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realise that you put them up there as well. Okay. When did Scotland's whisky regions become legally recognised? Was it A, 1784, B, 1988, C, 2009, and D, 2016?
Right.
And
Let's
they
see.
should get that, because we heard it. We heard the answer just about half an hour ago, didn't we?
If anyone was paying attention, then that one's easy, right? But the question is, were they paying attention or not?
That's another question. A, B, C, or D.
Well, we're getting a bit of a mix here, actually.
Oh, I think there wasn't very many paying attention.
I don't think Rennie was paying attention because he's gone for A.
Think that Leslie Harrison looks promising.
Right. Okay, let's.
Max Gilbert. Oh no. So the answer is 2009. The Scotch Whisky Regulations 2009 set out precise geographical boundaries for 2 protected localities, Islay and Campbelltown, and 3 protected regions, Highland, Lowland and Speyside. I think, as we discussed, well, as was discussed with you earlier, they're saying now that these recognised categories are slightly outdated now, because everybody, Speyside's peated and we're unpeated, and
yeah, exactly.
More fluid now, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. Question 2. Campbelltown. We've just been talking to Ian McALISTER. Campbelltown was once the whisky capital of the world. How many distilleries did the region house at its peak? A, 55, B, 26, C, 35, or D, 72. Now, we didn't cover this with Ian tonight, so you didn't get any clues if you were listening to our chat with Ian McALISTER at Glen Scotia. But yeah, once the whisky capital of the world. Rennie's using an excuse. He was distracted by a fine dram, but always excuses. Right, what are we getting? We're getting Frank and Gerben in with a C, Tobias 55, Charles is having a guess at D, 72. Oh, again, a bit of a mix. We're all over the shop. Leslie's saying A, Glenn's saying D. Right, Miguel's saying A. The answer is C, 35. So, you know, it was absolutely, for the size of the place, it was absolutely Whiskyopolis, I think they called it. You know, huge whiskey industry going on in Campbelltown. But there was a variety of causes that impacted it, and saw so many of the distilleries closing to the point, I think it was only 2 at one point, then it came 3. And there's a couple more planned that are going to be opening fairly soon. So it is a region which is seeing something of a renaissance. But at one point, hard to believe, it had 35 distilleries. Right, over to you, Rachel.
Okay. Question 3. Why does whisky legally have to be aged for a minimum of 3 years? A. Distillers decided it was best for flavour and quality. B. It was a compromise with the government over demands for prohibition. C. Consumers found clear new make unappealing. And D. Oak used for aging removes unhealthy bacteria.
Right, let's see. Any takers?
Well, I've got, what is it, a 1 in 4 chance of success? Is that good odds?
It's good odds. No prize for this, though.
Oh, no prize. That's the problem. They would have been paying more attention if there was a prize.
That's it. So what have we got? A couple of Bs.
Oh, Anne Bingham there, looking promising. Oh, they're doing well. Oh, Charles Grabitsky in there. He's just copied the other people with their
Right. Well, we'll just reveal it.
So the answer is B. Lloyd George advocated total prohibition of alcohol, imagine, but had to make do with a compromise of various measures, including a ban on the sale of spirits aged for less than 3, initially 2 years under the Immature Spirits Restriction Act. This was both a reflection of the temperance movement's contention that immature spirits cause more drunkenness than those left to age for longer, well, and also the concern of many in the Scotch whisky industry that irresponsible distillers were padding out cheap blends with large dollops of unaged grain spirit. Historically, whisky was previously often sold straight from the still.
There you go. It's always to do with the tax man, isn't it?
Always, always. Death and taxes.
Right, I'm reluctant to pronounce this one. I think I should give this one to you as well, Rachel, because
Okay.
I'll just make a mess of it. On you go.
Okay, what loch does Islay Distillery Ardbeg use as a water source? Is it A, Loch Ugadal, B, Loch Gorm, C, Loch Skerrils, and D, Loch Finlagan? Charles.
There's a bit of a clue there, I think.
Yes, I think so. If you can't work this one out, then you're fired, everybody.
Let's see if Rennie can get this one right, because I think he's on 0 out of 4 so far.
It's not the winning, it's the taking part.
That's it. Yeah, I think that's
Has to be A, Max Gilbert. You're right. There's no doubt that the loch is peat laden. But does that have any effect on the whisky itself? Could discuss the misconception that right, okay.
We'll save that.
Read that out. It's just a wee note to me.
Yeah, we'll save that one for another time, I think, because we could be here all night talking about that.
Loch Ugadal, well done.
Loch Ugadal, very good. All right, question 5. Which Scotch whisky distillery currently has the tallest stills in the industry? Is it A, McALISTER, B, Old Pulteney, C, Glenfiddich, or D, Glenmorangie? Right. I think that's quite an easy one, Rachel, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. Is it called the cathedral, the Still Cathedral? What's it called when you go in? It's yes. Oh, see, look, they're all the way there. Oh, they're all racing up the leaderboard.
Yeah. Too easy tonight. Too easy.
Too easy for them. They're too much geeks. They're wee geeks tonight.
It is indeed Glenmorangie. We should have asked how tall are the stills at Glenmorangie.
Yes, we'll do that the next time, Richard.
Yeah.
To the quarter of an inch.
Exactly. 8 meters or 26 feet. And apparently the stills date back to the founder William Matheson's decision to buy second-hand gin stills instead of the traditional onion-shaped pot stills. But that's disputed. And if Ian Russell was still around as our whisky historian and archivist, he might have something to say about that tall tale. But he's not with us anymore. Right, over to you, Rachel.
Okay. What Speyside distillery was the first to take out one of the new licenses issued after the passing of the 1823 Excise Act? Was it A, Cragganmore, B, Glen Grant, C, Glenlivet, or D, Tamdhu?
Right, let's see.
It looks promising here. Seeing Tobias.
That Miguel went for B. Tobias is D. Jan is D as well. So a bit of a mix there as well.
I think Ali seems to be Ali Yule seems to be the. So will we do the great reveal?
The great reveal.
Glenlivet. That's Glenlivet. George Smith famously travelled with a pair of pistols in case he was attacked by his former colleagues, as the act ruined the decades-strong industry of whisky smuggling.
There you go. Right. Question 7. Which distillery considers itself to be Scotland's oldest? Is it A, Caol B, Glenturret, C, Benriach, or A, Royal Bracla? Right. Now I know this one because I was up at one of these distilleries not that long ago. Yeah. And it's, you know, they certainly trade on their history. And it seems like most of you know the history because you're all coming in with B. So it is indeed Glenturret. And actually, I was there, and they've shaved another 12 years off of their founding date. An archivist found some other document which dates the distillery back to 1763, which was another 12 years off the age of the distillery in the Hosh next to Crieff in the lovely Perthshire countryside. It's a beautiful distillery under relatively new ownership and well worth a visit.
Splendid.
Right, one for you, Rachel.
Oh, right, okay. But this is all very complicated. There's sometimes not a right answer for this, but in this
Right,
case,
okay.
we'll take a right answer. What year did Fèis Islay begin? Because, you know, there's different concepts of what the Fèis is. Was it 1984, 1955, 1999, or 1937?
Right, so is there a bit of a debate about this?
Well, you know, because there was a kind of a Fèis event maybe before it became officially a whiskey festival, if you see what I mean. So it depends what year and when you regard it as officially starting. Because I think we took out an anniversary bottling, and then other people were saying, "Oh no, but it started the year before it," and we'd taken out an anniversary bottle.
So we're getting a few different answers here. Yep.
So we are. Well, at least no one said D.
Yes.
Nothing. So the answer here is A, 1984, and you can remember that because think of George Orwell. That'll remind you, right?
There you go.
And as I said, whiskey wasn't always the main focus. So no whiskey tasting event was held until 1990. The focus was more on food, music, and Gaelic culture, which I am doing a lot of in my open day. So if people are wanting to experience a lot of tuchterness.
Fantastic. And we kind of dug into this for the May issue of Unfiltered because we asked Gavin Smith to write a feature for us about the history of the May festivals, really. And he's taken a look at the Spirit of Speyside, the Campbelltown Malts Festival, and of course Fèis on Islay to kind of dig into its history. And we got some great archive photos dating back to, I believe, 84, where it was the start of the festival. And as you say, Rachel, it really wasn't about whiskey at all at the beginning, was it?
No, about culture and, you know, the best of what Islay has to offer, which it still is in the background. It was kind of maybe a bit hijacked with the whiskey, but it's still the, and that's, you know, the people come maybe for the whiskey, but then they come back for the island.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole package, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, let's crack on with question 9. Now an outlawed component of Scotch production. What is Paxaret? I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Paxaret. Is it A, a preservative to increase whiskey's shelf life? Is it B, a cleaning agent used in wash stills? Is it C, an intense type of peat? Or is it D, a condensed vino de color wine? Right, Paxareti. Let's see. How are we getting on with this one? I should say that our competition is now closed, so I can take that off the screen. Good luck to everyone who's had a go, and we will reveal the winner shortly. And I'm also very happy to say our missing guest, Bruce, seems to have turned up, and we'll be able to have a chat with him very soon as well. Right. We've got Miguel and Max going for D, Leslie's going for B, the cleaning agent. Or Rennie might have got one right at last. He's gone for D. So
this one looks promising. Mm-hmm.
The correct answer is it's a condensed vino de color wine. It was used as a sweetening and colouring agent in the blending of sweet sherry styles, and subsequently discovered by the whiskey industry to revive old sherry casks when supply dropped in the 1970s and 80s. And it was kind of forced into the wood to give sherry, to give whiskey a kind of a fairly artificial sherry flavour. But that was banned in 1990 when the Scotch Whisky Order was revised. Apparently, there are accounts of queues of Speyside housewives waiting at distilleries during the festive season for a cupful of this paxaret to use as a secret ingredient in their Christmas puddings.
They would have been better, Richard, getting themselves a wee dram of this, which is like liquid Christmas pudding, rather than a
bit more expensive. And it's described as the Spanish buckfast. For anyone that knows buckfast, that's not really a compliment. So maybe best avoided the old paxaret. Right, let's finish this off, Rachel.
Okay, what Speyside distillery was the first to use a white wine cask? A, was it Ben Romach, B, Bladnoch, C, Glenmoray, or D, Mortlach?
Right. That's maybe quite a difficult one.
It was difficult for me. I wouldn't have known the answer to this. I wouldn't even know the answer to that in Islay.
Yeah.
You see, they got easy ones earlier and you're making them hard now.
Yeah, just throw in a tricky wee one at the end there. See how people are doing.
Make sure that they're awake.
Absolutely.
Oh, it looks promising. Look at all that. They've got Bias and Stefan. Oh, it's looking promising. So I think everybody knows the answer. The answer is C, Glenmoray Chardonnay cask, produced in the 90s. They also did the first cider cask.
That's great stuff. Right, you can all tot up your own scores, and some of you got on better than others there, I think. But a good wee test of your general whiskey knowledge. Rachel, thank you very much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Being my quiz co-host as well. And really look forward to seeing you. Let's bring Mads back in there. Really looking forward to seeing you over on the island before too long at the end of May. So brilliant. All the best with the Islay Whisky Academy activities. Great to see you, Rachel.
Lovely to see you too. Thanks very much. All the best, and we'll see you next month. Sláinte.
Great stuff. Right, Mads, you've been busy in the background there, pulling together all of the entries to our competition. Now, what should we do? Shall we reveal them now, or we've got the opportunity to cross over to Bruce CLYNE-WATSON, our chef. So I tell you what, shall we save the competition results, and we'll bring in Bruce to find out what he's up to with the society.
Sounds good to me.
Right. Here we are. Bruce, you've made it.
Hi, good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm great. I've had a bit of a stuck on the motorway for a few hours, but I'm here. Nice to see you all.
Yeah, nice to see you too. So let me introduce Bruce CLYNE-WATSON. He's a chef from the Highlands, and he's working with the society to create some extraordinary canopies, which are being matched up with these memory boxes that we've been talking about this evening with ENDRESS ANSGAR. So the canopies, I mean, I've got some pictures. I'll try and get these up, but they look extraordinary. Bruce, talk us through what you've been asked to do and what you've come up with.
So basically, I was given a set of tasting notes for 6 whiskies by the society, and I was asked to curate a set of canapes that emulated or evoked memories, but associated with the flavors of these whiskies. So essentially what I did was I took these tasting notes and established a set of 6 savory and 6 sweet canapes, either emulating exactly some of the flavors that the tasting notes suggested, or to complement the whiskey with ideas or flavors associated with Scotland.
And there we have some of the photos. It must have been something completely different. What does the combination of memory and flavor mean to you?
I mean, it's for me, it was quite an easy experience, because I kind of drew on my kind of, I'm from Forest, so I'm kind of, essentially I'm a Speyside, nearly. So I kind of looked at my childhood, things that I thought evoked sort of flavors and tastes of Scotland. So for instance, one of them is a braised venison belly on a deep fried potato. I've got a kind of haggis one with fried neeps in brown butter, langoustines, luxury ingredients that were associated with Scotland. And some of them are actually just kind of slightly tongue-in-cheek tasters. I've got a deep fried Mars bar on there with iron brew ice cream, which is quite controversial but interesting as well.
And you mentioned members having a kind of eureka moment when they experienced the memory box and canapé combination. What would your eureka moment be?
In terms of this sensation through these canapés?
Yeah. In terms of the creation, I mean, was there a particular moment where you went like, "Wow, yeah, that's it. That's what I want to create"?
To be honest, it's quite an exciting brief, because it's sort of associated with, a number of passions. I'm passionate about whiskey, I'm passionate about food, and I'm passionate about Scotland. So combining them all together is quite simple, because the whiskies that they gave me to taste were standout whiskies, and to involve cool and interesting Scottish ingredients is very easy. I made some of my own haggis, added some extra lamb tongue and some extra offally pieces to them to give it kind of a bit of extra love, and really key classic Scottish ingredients such as langoustines, venison, really beautiful ingredients from Scotland's larder, which I feel they really work well with the whiskies in general anyway.
Amazing.
They look amazing, Bruce, but they look kind of complicated. What would it be for people to kind of create their own canopies which connect with a whiskey, which they can relate to specific flavors or flavor profiles of whiskey, maybe?
I think essentially the first set of canapes I've curated are for.
Oh, I think we're losing Bruce. We got him, then we lost him. Oh, is he back?
Yeah, I think so. We're kind of almost running 3 sets. So there's the high-end set that I've done, then there's the sort of mid-range that are going to be rolled out throughout some of the society kitchens, and then there's kind of even simpler versions in the memory boxes, kind of have nods to flavors and the sensations and kind of memories of childhood, or being at your granny's house, etc., or by the beach, which are sort of simpler to recreate and really work nicely with whiskey.
Well, they look absolutely amazing. I'll just show these again, because they look spectacular.
So this one here, we've actually got some scallops with a mushroom puree and some hand-picked seaweed that I got from a friend in the East Nuka Fife.
Beautiful.
And that's the back garden caravan, that first one.
Yeah, that's quite a nice back garden.
Indeed.
What about this one, Bruce?
So this one here on the left hand side, you know, anyone that's spent any time in the Scottish countryside has seen a rather large amount of rabbit. So these are the little, on the left side there, it's what's called a rillette. So it's a sort of slow cooked rabbit with the liver, and it's coated in a wild garlic breadcrumb, because that's kind of, you know, it's very seasonal right now, and it's quite synonymous, you know, with the countryside. And that's paired with kind of like a little toasted walnut and some marmalade, which tied in with the tasting notes, because that particular whiskey was described as having a kind of a marmalade-y flavour. On the right-hand side, that is a little mini kind of tarte tatin, which is kind of an interpretation of a French classic kind of caramel, apple, buttery puff pastry dish. But the tasting notes were sort of mentioned that the whiskey made people kind of evoke this feeling of kind of plums and tatin at the same time. So I kind of married them together. And then it's got like a sort of salted caramel, dulce de leche kind of on top. And it's actually, this one actually has bubble gum on it.
Fantastic.
Powdered bubble gum. A bit interesting.
Talk us through this one, a bit of caviar as well.
On the right hand side, we've got cherry caviar with a banana bread. This is quite kind of somewhere in the sky. It's a little bit eccentric. So I've made a kind of cherry caviar because these were the tasting notes, said it was kind of a luxurious caviar flavor with hints of cherry, and they could taste banana bread. And on the left hand side, these are the it's kind of like a braised venison brisket sort of belly. It's really slow cooked for 12 hours, and it's full of like a rich venison sauce. And I've made this kind of like deep fried, layered, crispy potato dish, which that's the winner. That's really, really tasty.
And this is the last picture. We've got 4 out of the 6. What's going on? This is Nan's house for tea.
I see. So on the foreground, we've got like so essentially it's like a saurine, you know, a classic kind of malt loaf kind of crisp. So that's out, and I've made a whiskey chocolate mousse with caramelized pineapple. And in the background, you can see like it's basically like a really extra awfully haggis with some really fine shortbread biscuits and some gorse, because obviously gorse is quite synonymous again with the Scottish countryside and the seaside. So they're kind of they're kind of marrying really classic, interesting flavors with kind of traditional things you might have had already, you know, oat cakes and haggis, but kind of a little bit more luxurious and you know, very much like whiskey. You know, it's kind of a highbrow product which is full of flavor and history. So it's important to try and kind of represent that with the food that you would eat with whiskey, which is maybe not always what people do. But the Scotch Malt Whisky Society is obviously kind of a kind of exclusive luxury brand, and we want to kind of make people feel that way when they taste these canapes as well. It's important to kind of do whiskey the justice that it deserves.
Definitely. Well, they look fantastic. That's 4 out of the 6 that we're able to show tonight. You're going to be at an event, a special event in London. But yeah, so but I think we'll also be rolling these out at the members' rooms, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that's on the cards. But brilliant, Bruce. I really appreciate you dropping in, because I know that you've been on a marathon journey and you just about made it in time. So that's fantastic. Much appreciated.
Holy Land, though. I'm back in Scotland, though, so it's worth it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we'll raise a glass to that. Welcome home.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. All the best.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for your time.
Great stuff. Right, I'm glad Bruce made it. Not a brilliant connection, but he's there, so that's fantastic, and that's a real treat in store for these. Rebecca's asking for recipes. I don't know. Does anyone fancy trying to make these at home? I'm not sure that
A little bit of a challenge, yeah.
Or the ingredients.
Yeah, well, we'll be posting more details around those events soon, so keep an eye out on your emails.
Yeah, indeed. Right, Mads, we've been keeping people hanging on for the competition results. So let us know what do we have?
Indeed. Well, we had 36 entries, and there can only sadly be 3 winners. So in no particular order, we have Boris Dam, Alistair Islay, and Gerben Blocker. So congratulations to the 3 of you. We will be in touch to organise a delivery of your prize.
Fantastic. Well done to all of you who will be getting that wonderful tasting pack with the festival whiskies in it. Right, we are approaching the end, but we've got a couple more things, and we are going to have a little bit more music from the Rhythm and Booze project. This is called Walking Blues, and it was recorded live at Bruichladdich. So here are Felipe and Paul with the Rhythm and Booze project.
1, 2, 3, 4. This morning I feel around for my shoes. Know about the baby had the mold white blue. Woke up this morning I feel around for my shoes. Know about the baby had the mold white blue. Well, I woke up this morning I feel around for my shoes, yeah. Well, I woke up this morning now. Well, I feel around for my shoes. Blinds out there, mistreat the Lord, and I don't mind dying. Deep in this morning, had to go right the blinds out there, mistreat the Lord, and I don't mind dying. Well, leaving this morning, had to go right the blinds, yes. Well, leaving this morning, had to go right the blinds now. Tell me you're walking through St. Bed. Most open and Lord, I most ever had. Some people tell me walking through St. Bed. Most open and Lord, I most ever had. Is the world so feeling I most ever had? Is the world I feel like I most ever had?
Wow.
Not bad, huh?
You just want to get up and dance whenever they're on.
No, they're brilliant. That's Felipe and Paul from the Rhythm and Booze project. So thanks very much to the guys for sharing those tunes with us tonight. Couldn't do it live, but really, really happy to get those recordings, and especially something recorded live in the warehouse at Bruichladdich, so that's not too bad.
Indeed. And before we go away for the night, we have a wee sneaky first taste of tomorrow's very special Speyside Rare bottling. So we have Lindsay Cowan, who's a society ambassador from SMWS Glasgow, and she's going to give us a wee first taste of Distillery 36 Speyside Rare, a reward for patience.
Hi there, my name's Lindsay. I'm an ambassador at the Scotch Malt Whisky Society in Glasgow, and today I'm going to be tasting a lovely dram. So from distillery number 36. This is part of one of our rare releases. So this is in celebration of the Spirit of Speyside Whisky Festival. So I'm just going to have a wee nose. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of those kind of deep, rich, dried fruits. A bit of toast as well. Have a wee taste now. Almost getting kind of plums, nectarines, really, really fruity. So this dram has been on quite a journey. It's been in 3 different types of cask. So first it was in refill bourbons, and then it was put into quarter casks and finished off in Oloroso, and then back in a wee second fill bourbon. So you'll see from the colour as well, there's a lot of influence from the cask there. And you're getting kind of those woody and tropical notes as well from the bourbon, as well as that kind of deep, rich and dried fruits from the sherry. A really interesting dram actually, and 36 is one of our really interesting distilleries. This is definitely one to watch for. I hope you guys get a chance to come and try it. Come and visit us in Glasgow soon, and you shall see me and my compadres very soon. Thank you.
Great stuff. Good job by Lindsay there.
There you have it. I'm looking forward to trying that one, I think.
Yes, the 36s are underrated, let me put it that way. I think they can be absolutely brilliant. I had one last week which not only knocked my socks off, but I was drinking with a couple of gentlemen from Devassa Cooperage in Jerez, and it knocked their socks off as well. It was just outstanding. So great stuff. That's out tomorrow, isn't it?
That's out tomorrow, and I've seen quite a few questions about the releases and when they're coming out. So I'll just run through when they're all out. So we have Distillery 36 Speyside Rare is out tomorrow, Friday the 29th of April for UK and EU. Distillery 5, which is our Lowland Rare release, is out the 6th of May. Well, that's Friday as well. Distillery 19, Highland Rare, Friday the 13th of May. Distillery 93, Campbelltown, also Friday the 20th of May. And then we've got 2 releases on Friday the 27th of May, and those are the 2 Islay Rares, and they're from Distillery 3 and Distillery 53.
Very good. Yep, and all that information is currently on our website. I think if you go to the homepage of smws.com, you can link through to a special festival site, and it's got all the information about what's going on, and it will be updated as we go through festival month. But yeah, kicking off Spirit of Speyside tomorrow. There's going to be music up there at the Downs Hotel and great whiskey. And then events going on each day from Friday through till Sunday up on Speyside to get festival month underway. And just loads of stuff going on, both on location, at our members' rooms, loads of stuff. So great time to get involved with the society and everything that we have happening. Right, Mads, it's getting late, so I think we should draw it to a close this evening. But thanks to everyone for being involved. Thanks to all our guests, Ian McALISTER from Glen Scotia, ANSGAR ENDRESS talking about the memory boxes. Delighted to get our chef, Bruce CLYNE-WATSON, in towards the end of the live stream tonight. That was great. Ian Russell talking about the whiskey regions. Rachel MacNEILL from Islay, and Paul and Felipe from the Rhythm and Booze Project for supplying the music. Also a shout out to Helen Brownless for helping out with many things behind the scenes, and for pulling together the quiz, which was great. So thanks very much, and thank you to you, Mads, for being my wonderful co-host. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you as well. And the only other thing I'd say is we'll be back on the 31st of May with our virtual tasting. Those packs go on sale tomorrow, so make sure you get one.
That's it. All right, folks. Lovely to see you all, and have a great festival month. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you either online or in person before too long. So raise a glass and say Slange. All the best from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. Good night.